Every good evening and welcome to the United Stand. It's our Carabao Cup final preview. Is this not exciting? Manchester United playing for their first trophy in 6 years this Sunday. By the end of the weekend, hopefully, we'll have broken that terrible run without a trophy. I think it's our worst run since the 1970s. So look, it's almost as long since Newcastle actually won a cup that matters. So big game, and I can't wait for it to come. We'll talk about the starting lineup in a minute. I want to come back into this screen because it's a Friday night show as well, so we want to get involved in that. I hope you're doing well. Lots to talk about. Also, I want to talk about the sale. Bit of news coming in this evening. The reason it's gone quiet on the sale is because the Glazers have shut it down. They've basically told the Rain Group they don't want stuff coming out and people are having to stay quiet. We'll talk about what that means in a little bit, but we're going to fly straight into Newcastle because I think there's so much to talk about that. Before I do talk about that though, in the live chat and the video description, don't forget the international break is getting closer and closer. It's 3 weeks on Monday that we'll be doing our first ever live United Stand show for 2 nights in Dublin. 21st, 3 weeks on Monday. We're in Dublin. Those shows are sold out. You can't get those unless somebody's selling them for double the price because it's popular. I don't know, but we've sold Dublin out. We still have got tickets on the Thursday night for Manchester and the following Wednesday night in London. Get your tickets while you can. These are going to be epic shows. United Stand on tour. I've been putting together the show tonight. Everybody who buys a ticket is going to get an email asking what question they'd like to be asked. And if those questions get asked, then we'll give you the shout out on stage. We're going to be doing interactive stuff as well. There's going to be challenges. It's going to be great. It's going to be Goldbridge on stage and I can't wait. Also a few beers before and afterwards. So looking forward to it and can't wait to see you all there. So get your tickets. And we'll see you there, but get them while you can. Manchester and London, you can still get them. International break, love to see you there. Can't wait for it. Manchester and London as well. If you're thinking about visiting Manchester, Old Trafford, United Stand show on the evening. We've got Ben Foster on the. I forgot about that. Ben Foster's on the Manchester show as well. London, visit London and see the United Stand. Calvin says thumbnails are giving me 2018 9-channel vibes. Love it, Kevin. And hi, Mark, you're a legend. Still can't forget the years of lockdown when your streams kept a lot of us going through rough times. You kept me going as well, Sean. Come on, you kept me going as well. And the shares took a plunge. That's why they want the silence, says Tony. Exactly. Right, let's fly into the show. It's Manchester United against Newcastle in the Carabao Cup on Sunday afternoon. And I want to just start off talking about this game. And, I don't think we need to say time to deliver because I think we already know that Erik ten Hag is an absolute master, mentality master, and these players will know it's time to deliver. And ultimately, it comes down to Newcastle and what they're going to offer. We reacted to Erik ten Hag's press conference earlier. He said that basically, they're annoying Newcastle. They're a bit of a time-wasting team. And I think, look, there's evidence to that as to how difficult this game will be. There is this perception that Newcastle have dropped off a little bit lately. And certainly they have. I think in their last 8 Premier League games since Christmas, they've only won 2 of them. But then in those two wins from 8 Premier League games, they've only lost 1 of them. So they've drawn 5 basically. Really interesting because they have fell off a bit, but they're not losing games. DC says Erik ten Hag talking about annoying Newcastle United reminds me of Jurgen and Pep complaining about all the penalties United got during COVID. Champion mind games. Thank you very much, DC. Also, I did write this down and I can't even read my own writing. 1 up 9 scored 9. 1 up 9 scored 9. You're an idiot. 1 up 9 scored 9. Top 9. Oh, okay, sorry, idiot. Idiot bridge. Yeah, so they've drawn 5 games. They've only scored 6 goals in their last 8 games, right? But they've only conceded 5 in their last 8. So this perception that Newcastle have had a wobble, I think we need to just address this and say that they're not scoring many goals, but they've only lost 1 in their last 8. And they've only conceded 5 in their last 8. So as much as they've had a wobble and they're not scoring many, they're still not conceding many. And actually that loss to Newcastle, to Liverpool last week, was probably their most significant loss in a very, very long time. In fact, they've not conceded 2 goals in a game for bloody months in the Premier League. So they're going... Ten Hag knows, yes, they've had a bit of a wobble, but they're not losing. They're not losing games. They're not conceding goals. Their defensive record is ridiculous, by the way. They've only conceded 15 goals this season in the Premier League. They are number 1 for conceded goals. And second place is Arsenal with 23. So they've nearly conceded half less than what Newcastle have than what Arsenal have. 15 goals conceded all season for Newcastle. Arsenal are second with 23. So they've conceded 8 less goals than the team in second place for goals conceded. Unbelievable defence. Obviously, they haven't got Nick Pope, though. However, goals scored, every team in the top 9 has scored more goals than them. So Newcastle don't concede many goals, don't score many goals. Paul Gray says boring Newcastle. I think we know where this game is sort of going to head. And that's why, when I move across to this side, so you can see my team, that is why I would go... There's something in my mouth. Well, it is. Looks to me like it's a bit of a bean skin. A baked bean skin. You're famous, mate. Thousands are watching you. I'll hoover that up later. Anyway, this is how I would line up for this game. I think it's really, really important that we go more on the front foot. And there will be differentials in this team. Some of you will look at this straight away and go, no, I don't like that, I don't like that, I don't like that. We've got to be careful of Newcastle. They did win the Tesco Cup in the 70s, so be careful about that. But look, De Gea in goal, obviously. Luke Shaw at left back, obviously. Varane and Martinez at centre-back, please. I mean, Newcastle are a top 4 team. I do not think this is the game to pick Maguire or Lindelof. Having said that, it wouldn't shock me. Can I just say, I would not be surprised if there is some really surprising selection. I don't expect it because we're playing West Ham on the Wednesday and it's at home. Against West Ham, pick Maguire, pick Lindelof, pick McTominay, pick whoever you want to pick. But in the final against Newcastle, we need to win. Pick Maguire, pick Varane, Casemiro and Martinez because they're fundamental to what we're trying to do. Morn, welcome to the Members Club. Now, I would go Delo at right back. A lot of you would go Wan-Bissaka. I understand why, but the reason I would go with Delo is because Newcastle are very defensive. So my thought process here is, we're playing a defensive side, why play a defensive right back? So I would go with Delo because he's more attacking, and against Newcastle, we need to attack them. So that's my logic. I agree with DC. Aaron Wan-Bissaka will start and Delo will come on in the second half. I think the fact that Wan-Bissaka went off in the 60-something minute, I think he probably will start Wan-Bissaka, and I haven't got a problem with that. But personally, I think Delo, going forward, we want to attack them, so I would go with Delo. Midfield, obviously Casemiro, and then Bruno. And then I suppose the differential is really whether you go with Fred or Sabitzer. And again, I think he might go with Fred, but I've gone with Sabitzer for the simple reason, if Eriksen was fit, he'd pick Eriksen because he's more of a creative. And I think against Newcastle, because they're more defensive, go with a more attacking midfielder with Sabitzer. I think Fred did a very good job against Barcelona, but I personally would play Sabitzer because he's more attacking. But again, I'm not going to be shocked if Delo and Sabitzer are on the bench and Wan-Bissaka and Fred start. He may well do that. I'm just saying, Newcastle are quite defensive. We've spoken about how good defensively they are, how they don't score many goals, how they draw a lot of games. So actually, I think you've got to get at them. And I think Sabitzer and Delo allow us to be more on the front foot. And then front three, I don't see what else you can do. We don't have Anthony Martial. You could start Sancho if Rashford's not fit, but I think Rashford will be fit, and therefore I think we will play Weghorst and Rashford and Anthony. And I actually think that, maybe it's a Goldbridge hot take, I think Weghorst is really important in this game because Newcastle are bloody brilliant in the air, and they will play a low block. They will play a low block. And I think we're going to have to put crosses into the box. And if you're playing a low block, Rashford down the middle against a low block, you've got to put pinpoint crosses in and you're not going to catch them on the break. And I know Weghorst isn't particularly good in the air, but he is physical. And I do think that Weghorst in this game could be very important against a low block, where you do want to put crosses in, because although Newcastle are good in the air, Nick Pope's not going to be in goal. So I actually think Weghorst is worth 45 minutes. I do not expect at half-time Weghorst to be costing us the game. And what I mean by that is, if you played Weghorst against City or Liverpool next week and you have a bad half and you're 2-0 down, the game's over. I don't see us being 2-0 down against Newcastle at Wembley. So if Weghorst doesn't work, you can make the change at half-time. But I do think he's worth starting in a game like this because he's busy. He's busy, he'll work hard, he's physical, and we know that Newcastle will play a low block, and we know that they're physical. So I think Weghorst in a game like this is really important. And actually, if Rashford doesn't make the game, if we go with Weghorst and we put Rashford on the bench, you could put Sancho on the left. So I actually think, as much as Rashford's a big loss if he's not fit, you could actually just say to him, look, start on the bench. We're going to go with Sancho on the left and Weghorst up front. That there are options. So I actually have this feeling, like I did when Anthony came on yesterday. I've got this feeling that Weghorst might be very useful in a game like this. Asking him to do it against Barcelona is very difficult because they're a technical side. But Newcastle, they're more of a traditional English side. They're hard-working, they're hard to break down. And I think Weghorst might suit that style of football. Newcastle are not going to get the ball down, play a high line and play tiki-taka. So, there is going to be opportunities in and around the box. Keep an eye on that. I think Weghorst might be quite important. Dean says they're going to be difficult to break down, but I'm confident this team has the keys to open them up. I'd love an early goal, Dean. Talking about how the game plays out, this is why I'd play Sabitzer and Dalot, because it gives us more going forward. I would like to see Luke Shaw and Dalot like wingers, inverting, all that stuff we've seen at times. I would like to see Varane and Martinez left on their own, defending on their own. Casemiro pushing forward, Sabitzer, Bruno, the wingers staying forwards, Weghorst in and around the box. I'd love to see an early goal. And I think, look, if Rashford doesn't make it, you go with Sancho. He might play Fred over Sabitzer and he might play Wan-Bissaka over Dalot. But I think, however he goes with it, I think we've got to go on the front foot. We've got to go on the halfway line and we've got to look to press them. And we've got to look to try and win the game in the first half. Because you know what? Jack Daniels says rest Casemiro and Varane. Yeah, I mean, come on. He might do that, but does anybody think that's a good idea? Resting players in our first cup final and probably our easiest cup final in 6 years. I mean, look, if we get to the Europa League final, it's going to be difficult. Juventus are in there, Roma are in there, Sevilla are in there, Arsenal are in there. This is Newcastle. It's a one game cup. Whatever you think about the Europa League, it's 7 games. Whatever you think about the FA Cup, it's another 4 games. This is one game to win a trophy. You don't rest people. You rest them against West Ham. You win this trophy and you've won a trophy. You've got to go hard and you've got to go strong. And I think that if we can get that early goal, I think we've got to be energetic in the first half. I think we've got to press them. We've got to be energetic and really not let them settle, suffocate them. And if we're 2-0 up with 25 minutes to go, at that point, you take Casemiro off and bring Fred on. At that point, you maybe take Varane off and bring Lindelof or Maguire on. At that point, you bring McTominay on. I think that's how to win this game because we don't want extra time. Newcastle don't give a shit about extra time. They've had 8 days off. We've got to get this game won. I wouldn't start Weghorst, doesn't win any headers. I expect us to have most of the ball. I'd start Sancho and play Rashford through the middle. Bruno is key in this match. Can't be out of position, says Sean. I agree with you about Bruno, Sean, and I don't mind about Sancho, but my problem with Rashford is he's not fully fit. They're physical. They'll kick him. And against the low block, the pace of Rashford's sort of redundant. So, and Rashford's not great with his back to goal. I really do think Weghorst will suit this goal. If you've watched Newcastle play, he's a hindrance. He's a physical player. I know he's not brilliant in the air, but I just think his lack of pace won't matter against Newcastle. Score prediction. I'm going to go 2-0 to Manchester United. I fancy us to win. I'm going to go 2-0. I don't think it's going to be pretty. I don't think it's going to be a great game. Bruno Guimaraes is back after a bit of a break. They have got players that can cause us problems. Let's not forget, Newcastle are not slow on the break. They have got some fast players. But I fancy Manchester United and I fancy us to win 2-0. And I've got to say, we're drifting from one game to another very, very quickly, aren't we? But we need to focus as a fan base because the players and Ten Hag will be focused. We need to focus on this game because I tell you what, Sunday night will be devastating if we lose. And we don't want to be in that position, do we? We don't want to be in the position where we've blown this opportunity. And we'll start, you know what, as well? I've not heard anybody say this, but I was thinking this just before we went live. We're in 4 tournaments. Winning the league title is very unlikely. The Europa League is very difficult still, and the FA Cup has still got good teams in it. Don't let your mind wander to think it's about how many we're going to win. I think we've got more chance of winning another trophy if we win this one. If we don't win this one, I think we've got less chance of winning another trophy. And my logic behind that is, I think if we don't win this one, it puts a bit of doubt in your mind. It puts a bit of, oh shit, we can't do that final thing. The Europa League, we didn't win it with Ollie. And we haven't won anything for 6 years. These players have been mentality kings over the last few weeks. But if they don't win on Sunday, there will be a kickback from that. There will be a hangover from that. Psychologically, they'll struggle. We've got to find a way of winning it. I don't care how we win this game. I hope we beat them 3 or 4-0. But realistically, I don't care if it's a last-minute winner off the referee's toe. I don't care. We just got to win the game. And obviously that wouldn't be a goal in the modern game because it's not allowed. But the reality is that we all want to win and we all want to win well. But don't forget that if we don't win this, it causes a problem potentially for our players. Mark, would you keep Old Trafford and renovate it or knock it down? Come on, United, says Danny Doritos. Hope you're doing well, Danny. Not heard from you a while. I'm a fan of keeping it and rebuilding it. Mason says, this lineup is perfect. Do you think it's funny how each of the back five were brought in by a different manager? I would love it if we beat them, says Mason. Well, I did a video on That's Football about Newcastle, actually. I'm just going to move over to this screen now. I did a video on my That's Football channel earlier about Newcastle because I heard Dan Burn from TalkSport. I heard Dan Burn from Newcastle on TalkSport when I was driving back today. And he was basically saying we've created this siege mentality at Newcastle because nobody likes us. And I was really surprised because I'm like, well, that's a very clever thing to do, but I don't think nobody likes you. I'm quite impressed with Newcastle this year. I'm quite happy that they're in the top four. I don't dislike Newcastle. I dislike them at the weekend because they're in the way of us winning the trophy, and I'll dislike them even more if they win it. But I don't dislike Newcastle. I think there's something very... They don't feel like a club that's the richest club in the world at the moment. They've not actually achieved anything. And I still don't think they've really got a fantastic squad like a Chelsea or a Man United. So I think they're punching above their weight still. And I feel like they've got that underdog mentality on Sunday. And I think a lot of people will want them to beat us. So, we are the favourites. We've got the better players. And he was saying that, look, that team's full of internationals. Martinez has just won the World Cup. And I think this is really important as well. We talk about this 6 years that we've not won a title and the fact that some of these players, they're not very good at getting over the final hurdle. But remember, Anthony's won titles, Casemiro's won titles, Varane's won titles, Martinez has won titles and a World Cup. These players have come in and they've only come in the last year or two. Like it's only year 2 for Varane. Casemiro, it's year 1. Anthony, it's year 1. Martinez, it's year 1. We think about this team isn't good at winning trophies, but nearly half of it hasn't really been part of the last 6 years. For all the dudes saying Jude over Frankie, hope you all saw how good he is up close. Mark, can I buy the Frankie jersey from you? I'll pay you $50, says Akrama. I'm not selling it. I'm keeping it until he really comes. Hi, Mark. Is Delo Jose's best signing? Sincerely, Nelson, says Nelson. I want to get into the chat now. Look, it is a Friday night show. It's not normal that we do a preview for such a big game. It's not normal that we do a preview at all. But it is Friday night, so look, if you're having a beer and you're kicking back and enjoying it, let's get into it because it's Friday night and I love the Friday night show. You've got to pump it up. On Sunday, we need to finish the game in 90 minutes, says Divya. Look, if it takes 120, it takes 120, but I think the only problem with it taking 120 is that we will get very tired. At some point, we're going to get very tired. I mean, I'll be honest with you, actually. Here's something for you. I personally I don't really care what happens against West Ham. I don't think West Ham are that good. And I think Old Trafford will beat them even with our reserves. But knocking Barcelona out and winning the Carabao Cup, if we get beat on... I don't like those hypotheticals. But if somebody said, you can knock Barcelona out, you can win the Carabao Cup, but West Ham will pump you 3-0, will you take it? I'd say yeah. Yeah. At the end of the day, yeah. I mean, the Europa League and top four is far more important than winning the FA Cup anyway. And it's great to have won the Carabao Cup and knocked Barcelona out. I think we will beat West Ham. I think West Ham's an easier game than Newcastle, even if we rotate. But I can't be honest. I can't be honest. I can't lie. West Ham game is the game to rotate. West Ham game is the least priority. I mean, actually, I've never looked at it like this, but we've got a four game season defining period, haven't we? Barcelona last night, which we've already won. Carabao Cup final on Sunday, West Ham in the FA Cup on Wednesday, and then Anfield in the league on the Sunday. There's 3. If I can only win 3 of those games and lose 1, you know what I'm picking, and I know what you don't need to poll it. If you can win 3 and lose 1, and you can win 3 as long as you get absolutely annihilated in the other one. Well, West Ham, come and fill your boots. Because if we can beat Liverpool and we can beat Newcastle, I don't care what happens in the West Ham game. I don't believe in hypotheticals. It won't happen, but that is the lowest priority. And normally the FA Cup's bigger than the Carabao Cup, I agree. But the FA Cup's still got 4 more games in it. This is 1 game to win a cup. That's how I look at it. Newcastle are overrated, says Nathan. Just on a good run, but never getting top 4. United to win comfortably. Love the content and see you in Dublin, says Nathan. We'll sort this out nearer the time. But when we're having these United Stand live shows, I need to know what pub we're meeting up at the start and stuff like that. Because I'll be there. Morn's, okay, I think this is the best chance to win a trophy. This is a much bigger boost than the Barca game, says Morn. Winning a trophy is a major mentality boost. I agree. I completely agree. I completely agree with you on that one. I'm going to talk about the Glazers in a minute, but I completely agree. I think it doesn't matter what the trophy is as long as it's legitimate. The Carabao Cup is the smallest cup you can win in a domestic season, but it's still a trophy. And it resets that trophy drought. What do you make of Rooney on ESPN saying the Glazers have done great over 20 years? Also, thank you for everything you do across all your channels, says James. I don't know about this from Rooney, so I'd have to find out where that's all about. Does he chuck Scotty into the team for some fights, says Matt? Look, you know what? I'm going to go into this game on Sunday with an open mind. As you can see, that's the team I would pick, and it's strong. Would I be shocked if a Harry Maguire or a Scott McTominay or a Garnacho started? Yes and no. I mean, look, at the end of the day, we're playing Thursday night and then Sunday afternoon. He might have it in his mind to not start the same team again. He might do. Casemiro, I don't want to underestimate La Liga, but the games in England are much more difficult. Well, I agree with that, Moods, I do. Look, on the Glazers, very quickly, someone mentioned something about Rooney. It is the Friday night show, so keep those questions coming in. But let me just see if I can find that. So, look, a lot of people, we've spent a lot of time, this year talking about you know, what's going on with Manchester United in relation to the sale over the last few weeks. The last couple of days, it's gone very quiet. Some people are a little bit concerned about that. I mean, basically, there's no need to be concerned because we still don't know what's going to happen. But basically, everybody's been told to be quiet by the Rain Group, who are handling the sale. And so everybody who's involved in buying Man United, they've got no power. They might have financial power, but they've got no say in whether they're going to buy the club or not. So basically, they've been told to be quiet. And they are being quiet because they don't want to ruin the chances of potentially buying Manchester United. So Sir Jim, the Qatar Beard and everybody else, they want Man United. They want to be putting stuff out there about what they'll do with United. But at the moment, they can't even risk doing it with journalists or something like that. I mean, Mike Keegan's not really said anything about it for a while, has he? And that's because all the bidders at the moment have just gone very, very quiet. Now, that doesn't mean we won't get a headline tomorrow or on Sunday or on Monday because ultimately there might be information that's out there already that people are sitting on for a headline, but at the moment, and also the Glazers might just say, we're not bothered about a bit of publicity now, we're moving to the next stage. But at the moment, everyone's gone very, very quiet because they've basically been told to be quiet. Why they've been told to be quiet, I'm not 100% sure. I don't know whether that's because the Glazers are looking to stay or not. I don't personally think that myself, but you know, we'll have to wait and see. I'm actually just looking at this article. I can't see anything from Rooney about the Glazers. Just having a quick look. Glazers. I can't see anything from Rooney on the Glazers. I'm sorry, I don't know whether that's true or not. Danny Doritos, I'd sacrifice a couple of fingers to get a modern day Roy Keane into this team. How's the family, Mark, says Danny. Thank you. I can't see it anywhere. Can't see it. United Stand in person live in United States, says Owen. I'd like to do that, yep. It's mad. I've just searched Rooney and Glazers. Let me see if I can find it on here. I'd love to bring it into the show. I think it's quite interesting. I mean, I heard Rio Ferdinand saying that Martinez is the leader in that centre-back pairing. And I don't want to undermine, Ferdinand because he played in a very good centre-back pairing with Vidic. But Vidic was the leader in that centre-back pairing. And I actually disagree. I think Varane is the leader. I think they're both leaders, Martinez and Varane. I don't think Martinez bosses Varane. I don't see any evidence of that at all. I think they're both leaders, and I think they both work really, really well together. But we saw in Barcelona, I saw Varane's leadership qualities there. So I don't think that Martinez is the leader of the back four. I think Varane and Martinez do it together fantastically well. Right, I'm just going to try and find this because I'm sort of filling time there. Okay. I can see somebody tweeted Wayne Rooney just said the Glazers have done a fantastic job getting the bin, but I can't see loads on it. Rooney just said the Glazers have done a fantastic job with Man United. Unbelievable. Okay. it's not widely being reported, and I really can't comment on it that much because I can't see it, and maybe it will hit the UK press a little bit later. But a lot of people saying he said it on ESPN that they've done a great job for Manchester United. Savage says it's got to be impossible. General says I saw it and it's shocking. Okay, I like Wayne Rooney. I think he's a fantastic footballer and he's been a brilliant legend for Manchester United. But if he said that the Glazers have done a great job at Manchester United, it's a bit like when Rio Ferdinand said it about Mike Ashley at Newcastle, isn't it? It exposes a complete ignorance, you know. But you know what? This is what I mean. Like I've learned this the hard way. These players that were legends for Man United, some of them are complete knobheads. And I'm not saying Rooney is. I've never met him. I don't know whether he's a knobhead or not. But just because they were a genius on the pitch with their feet doesn't mean they're a genius with their head. And it doesn't mean that you'd want them managing the club or running the club. And it doesn't mean that they're not a bit of a knobhead. Like, I'm sorry, if any Man United player, whether it's Wayne Rooney, David Beckham, Cristiano Ronaldo, Roy Keane, or any other legend that I really respect as a player, if any of them come out and say the Glazers have done a good job, it doesn't make me think, oh, they're a legend that I really respect as a player. They might be onto something. No, I shall say, it's a bit like that Harry Enfield character, isn't it? That I sometimes do. That I you know, there used to be this character on Harry Enfield. I can't remember what his name was, but he'd basically sit there and he'd go, oh, I'm a big fan of Rooney. You know, there's no doubt about it. At 16 years of age, he comes on the scene, he skins the Arsenal defence and puts it over Seaman. And I think, bloody hell, we've got a good player here. He then moves to Manchester United, scores lots of goals, takes us England to the World Cup. Arguably one of the best English players we've had in the last 50 years. Fantastic player. Breaks the goal scoring record for England and Manchester United. Absolute genius at the feet. What a player he is. I love Wayne Rooney. I tell you what, if he came round my house and he wanted to eat my last piece of lasagna, I'll say, Rooney, do you want some salad with that? But I'll tell you what, if Rooney on an interview says the Glazers have done a good job at this club, I shall say, oi! Rooney, now get out of my house, wash the plate ups on your way out and piss off. And that's a bit what it's like. That's a bit what it's like, isn't it? It's like, I don't care how good he is. If he's come out and said the Glazers have done a good job over the last 20 years, I shall say, oi, Rooney, now, get out and get your coat and jog on, you absolute prat. You know, and that's true, but that's life. Like, I you know, I've worked for a lot of people I respect in my life, but it doesn't mean I've not fallen out with them. I don't have to agree with everybody's word just because I respect them. And I don't know whether he said it, but it doesn't matter whether he said it or he hasn't said it. If any Man United player comes out and says the Glazers have done a good job, they can jog on. You know, they can completely jog on because they're completely out. Ultimately, they're naive at best. And there's another word for that, naive. They are absolutely wrong. How you can say the Glazers have done a good job when they bought us on debt, kept us in debt, took dividends out of the club, bled it dry, didn't even rebuild the stadium or the infrastructure. They've done a shite job. Rooney did a good job for a few years under the Glazers. Sir Alex worked a miracle for a few years under the Glazers, but they didn't do a good job. But you know what? Maybe the Glazers paid Rooney the contract he wanted. Maybe he's got a good relationship with it. I don't know. But there ain't no way they've done a good job. Fergie once said he never played for a draw in his life. Do you believe that's the truth? Love the show, says Dino. What, honest answer? I think we might have played. I think we might have paid for a draw a couple of times under Sir Alex when we needed to. King, welcome to the Members Club. Jake, welcome to the Members Club. Mark Goldbridge, Comedy Hour, says D-Tra. I tell you what, I'm definitely going to do a few of those at the live show. I'll think of a few up. And that one was off the top of my head, but I'll think of a few. We'll have a good laugh those nights. Don't forget to get your tickets for London and Manchester. Links in the live chat and in the video description. In the international break, it's going to be a great couple of nights. Rooney previously complained about lack of transfers. Mate, look, you know what? They're legends as players. They're not legends as pundits. Everybody's capable of bad takes. That's a bad take. If he said that, that's a horrific take. It doesn't take anything away from the fact that he's our all-time goal scorer and a legend of the club. There are ex-players who are legends of the club, who are ambassadors for the club, who would never publicly... You know, if you got... Look, What about Wes Brown? What about Brian Robson? What about Peter Schmeichel? You get them on an interview and say, are the Glazers bad? They won't say it. They won't say it because they're on the payroll. They won't say it. They're ambassadors. They might say it now because the club's up for sale, but they're not going to say it. You know, I don't think Sir Alex Ferguson, the greatest, you know, I can't speak highly enough about Sir Alex Ferguson. Like, I don't ever want to say anything negative about him because for me, he was almost like a father figure growing up in a footballing sense because, you know, I'm probably quite stubborn and aggressive and frustrated in football because I grew up watching his interviews in the early 90s as an impressionable young man who was playing football myself. You know, I think many of us of a certain generation were influenced by Sir Alex Ferguson because he was just this, you know, didn't want to lose, bad loser, aggressive, winner, pedantic, stubborn. And on top of that, you know, created 4 or 5 brilliant teams, kept winning and provided us a period of success we will probably never see again. But if you ask Sir Alex Ferguson at any point since the Glazers have been here to condemn them, I don't think he ever did, and I don't think he ever would. So just because someone's got that different opinion, I don't think that's right, but they've got to do whatever, you know, they've got their own reasons for that. It's like people who want a gym and people who want guitar. You can't say that somebody who wants something different to you is a bad person. It's just a different opinion. Angry Frank is who it was, Tez. That's it. Search Angry Frank, Harry Enfield. He's probably one of my favourite characters. Winning the Cup on Sunday will be the catalyst to the press on and bring the Europa home too. If it was said in US TV, it's kind of explain it's Rooney now, says Mike Calvert. King, welcome to the members club as well. Keep those questions coming in. It's Friday night now, and you know what? You've actually generated a good topic of conversations there. Coach Con says the exact words were, I think the Glazers have done a fantastic job, were exact words, 10 minutes mark of the video. It's shocking. It's absolutely shocking. There's 2 explanations for that. 1, he's got a good relationship with them. 2, he's just not very bright on that particular topic because the thing is, some ex-players, Roy Keane's a bit like this, doesn't care what anybody thinks. I've got an opinion and I'm going to have it. And if the whole world disagrees with me, I really don't care. And I love Keane for that. I love that. And he has got that in him. You know, Roy Keane's the sort of person who, you know, just doesn't care. He will say what he thinks, and you know, he might be the only person in the room who thinks it, but he will stand by it. Some people are like that, and if Rooney has got enough brain cells between his ears, he would know that saying the Glazers have done a good job is going to absolutely antagonise the fan base that, you know, idolises him. So I can't understand why he'd say it. You might think it privately, but it's not the sort of thing you'd say publicly. I just don't get why you would say that. It doesn't, you know, I've got to listen to that. It doesn't make any sense at all. SK says, have you seen the Sir Jim Ratcliffe statement when he tried to buy Chelsea? It's so much more ambitious than the one he wrote for buying Man United. What a joke. In fairness, SK, the reason I've never brought that up, and I'm loving these questions tonight. Thanks for the super chat, by the way, SK. The reason I have never mentioned what Sir Jim Ratcliffe said when he took the Chelsea job is twofold, really, but it's actually onefold. The Chelsea sale was done very publicly, and it was allowed to be done publicly. So you could say a lot more. So I don't think it's fair to criticise Sir Jim Ratcliffe for the Chelsea bid being more exciting and informative than the Man United one, because the Man United one, they don't want the information out there. So I think the brief has been a lot smaller because of that. Jamie says, I don't buy club shirts, Goldbridge, repping the new United Adidas merch in the earlier show. Get up, my lad, says Jamie. What are you talking about? Oh, what are you talking about? I genuinely do not know what you're talking about, Jamie. Hi, Mark. Do you think there is a chance we could win the quadruple? Says Mahir. We can't win the quadruple because I'm not going to be a hypocrite. We can't win the treble. There is no treble to be won because the treble is the Champions League, the FA Cup and the Premier League. You're talking about a quadruple that belongs in Poundland. It's a wish quadruple. There's no Champions League in there, so it's not a quadruple. It's like Liverpool in the early noughties tried to claim a treble when they won the FA Cup, the Carabao Cup and the UEFA Cup. I mean, there was no league and there was no Champions League. We can't win the quadruple. We can't win the treble because we can't win the Champions League. There's only one treble and there's only one quadruple. No one's ever done the quadruple, but it's basically the Carabao Cup on top of the FA Cup, the Premier League and the Champions League. Can we win 4 trophies? Percentage? Honestly, I would say that we've got a 90% chance of winning 1 trophy. We've got a 50% chance of winning 2 trophies. We've probably got a 30% chance of winning 3 trophies and a 10% chance of winning 4 trophies. So that's my feeling on it. And also, if you want me to specifically say what's our chance of winning the league, 20% at best. I think we're an outsider. We're in the race. But you know what? We've got a cup final on Sunday and you can't think about the league. But if you want to win the league, win at Anfield next week. And suddenly, people will start looking in their wing mirrors. We're so happy for Anthony last night. The press judging him on his price tag alone with the stick he's getting. If we paid 10 million for him, they would be saying, oh, what a signing, says Dean. The press are hunting Anthony down. I don't care. I don't care about saying that. It's not all media, by the way. Far from it. You know, people, there are good journalists out there. There are journalists with bad takes and good takes. They're human beings at the end of the day. But when I say the media, you know, you can say, you know, it's hard for me to individualize. So I'm just talking about the mainstream media. There are certain people in that mainstream media who've got it in for Anthony. Some of the stuff that's been said about him is an absolute joke. I compared it to Grealish, who cost £100 million and is in year 2 at Man City. And actually, recently, Grealish has been doing quite well for Man City. 18 months after signing for £100 million. Anthony costs 20 million less, has never played in this league before, and has only been here for a third of the time, and gets stick. You know, it's not on. What's the difference between Anthony and Grealish other than their passport, and yet one of them gets treated completely differently? And I like both players. I think Grealish would have been a good signing for United. I think he would have suited us better, but you know, the treatment of Anthony's been a bit shocking. But then again, I think it was worse for Martinez. He was basically slated as not good enough without even being watched. What's your opinion about a salary cap in the Premier League, says somebody? No, I don't agree with it. I don't agree with salary caps. I don't agree with salary caps because ultimately the revenue that football clubs are making every year goes up. So if Manchester United make £100 million in profit every year, as an example, but you can only pay £10 million a year to players, where does the 90 million go? I mean, it's fine if that 90 million goes towards, you know, foundations and infrastructure and stadia and reducing season ticket prices to cheap prices, but ultimately it won't. It will go to other areas, and ultimately footballers, are they not what we go to watch? You know, they should be on good wages. I think it's up to clubs to set wage limits so that it doesn't get out of control, because you don't want to be in a position where, like United, 80% of it's over 80% actually of our revenue goes on wages. That's ridiculous. Clubs should be able to manage it themselves. Can we not twist any words? In 2010, Rooney stated that the reason he nearly left was because of the Glazers' financial grip on the club and no ambition, says Ryan. And potential poll, when we could realistically be sold under the circumstances, end of the season, beginning of the new season, or next year, says Joshua. Well, the plan is that we're going to be sold by the end of the season. Remains to be seen when it'll happen, but we're pissing in the wind, predicting it. You know, we don't know where it's going to go. I disagree, Mark. If Qatar can give us exactly what we wanted to hear, why not Sir Jim Radcliffe? All he cares about is Brexit, British bid for a British club, for Chelsea, putting Manchester back into the United for us, says SK. Mark, mate, I didn't excuse the fact that we got more information from the Chelsea bid for Sir Jim than we did for the United bid. I'm just saying that the Chelsea bid was very different to the Man United bid because that was a public bid, and the fans of Chelsea purposely were given information because they wanted to gauge what the fans wanted. It's not the same this time. In fact, the information we got about Qatar and Sir Jim never should have gone public, according to the Rain Group. That's not what the Glazers wanted. I do agree with you, though. I mean, the little information that came out from Qatar was build a new stadium, debt-free, not for profit, spend on infrastructure and players. What we've had from Sir Jim is debt, not for profits. God knows what's happening with the debt. Don't know about the stadium and don't know how we're going to raise transfer fees. So, there's a lot of uncertainty there. I'm not going to lie. I've said it all week. The Qatar bid and what we know about it is hands down the best one we know about at the moment, whether I want it or not. Barca game was Anthony coming of age. Loved this performance. Would a brand new stadium still be Old Trafford in terms of vibe? Could we move the turf, says Mike? No, I think if you move away from Old Trafford, you move away from Old Trafford and you lose what it is. What are your thoughts on financial fair play? In my opinion, it's very unfair to smaller clubs. Smaller clubs will always stay small and bigger clubs will always rule. I think you make a good point, Keir. If financial fair play is done properly, Man United dominate because our revenue and fan base is huge and we'll always get the better sponsor deals. Financial fair play, for example, is about, you can only spend a certain percentage of your revenue. Well, if you're Southampton and your revenue is £100 million a year and it's never going to go up, how can you, if you can only spend a percentage of £100 million, you're only ever going to be able to spend about 100 million top, and that's that's not going to happen, is it? Because it's a percentage of your revenue, and we've all got outgoings, whereas Man United's revenue might be £1 billion. So Man United will always be able to buy better players than Southampton. But how do you equalise it? Well, I think the Premier League does quite a good job anyway in distributing wealth compared to La Liga and Serie A. But, I think short of a sort of communist approach where everybody has the same revenue, everyone has, in which case it's very unfair because there's way more Man United fans than there are Southampton fans. Life's not fair. I say it to my kids all the time, life's not fair. If you're struggling for fair, if you're fighting for fairness, then you're going to be very disappointed. Life's not fair. All we can do is try and, make it as fair as it can be. But ultimately, I think it's going to be very, very difficult for a Southampton or a Brighton or a Norwich to ever be a Liverpool or a Man United without what's happened at Blackburn Rovers in the past, or Chelsea, or Manchester City. But their financial fair play will probably make that very difficult to happen. Newcastle are absolutely perfect for it, by the way, because they've got an absolutely massive fan base who can make a lot of money. I wouldn't say that it's impossible for the top six to be infiltrated. And the top six are obviously Man United, Man City, Liverpool, Chelsea, Arsenal and Spurs. I think an Aston Villa, maybe an Everton, certainly a Newcastle now, you can infiltrate it. You've just got to be a bit of a sleeping giant and have a big fan base. Dean says, we're so happy for Anthony last night. The press judging him on his pride have done that one. Mark, if Old Trafford gets renovated or gets a new stadium, where will United play it during the renovations? I've got no idea at all. I mean, they are obstacles, but they can't be barriers. Like you've got to go and play somewhere. You're right, but where it will be, I don't know. Is it true? And also, it's difficult because of where we are. Spurs went and played at Wembley because Wembley's just down the road. Where can Man United go and play? There isn't a big national stadium close by. So are you going to ground share with Man City? Just doesn't feel right, does it? Is there any other stadium in that area that's worthy of Man United? And remember, we've got 75,000 capacity every game, so you can't just go and ground share with Bury. It'd be very difficult. Of course, if you were building a brand new stadium, you could still play at Old Trafford until it's built. So, is it true that Bruno has only missed 2 games this season and one was even a suspension? That's crazy fitness. It's unbelievable, Azrael. It's absolutely incredible. Bruno Fernandes is a phenom. He is the phenom. He is the Undertaker of the football scene. He just doesn't lie down. And I've said it about Bruno plenty of times. I know he can be frustrating and I know he can have off games, but I think Bruno Fernandes has reignited within this fan base the importance of the captaincy. I don't know about you, but I think we were getting to a point with the captaincy where we were almost dismissing it as not being important. I mean, I can't remember who it was. It was either Van Gaal or Jose who used to give the captaincy to anybody. Fellaini would have it one game, Mata would have it the next. And I think they even said, I don't really think the captaincy is that important. And lo and behold, we didn't really ever win. We never challenged for anything big and we never looked like we were going to. Ten Hag appoints Bruno Fernandes. We go on this ridiculous winning run, and I'm old enough to remember Roy Keane. I'm old enough to remember Steve Bruce as a captain. I'm old, and even Paul Ince when he was captain, and Cantona, and obviously Gary Neville and Ryan Giggs, and these players embodied what that United side was all about. The captaincy mattered. Vidic, it mattered, and I think we've seen that again. I think we were getting to a point where captaincy doesn't really matter, and yet we were shite. And now we've got a captain that I think if you take Bruno out of that team, you miss him. I do think that the captaincy is important on the pitch. The manager can only do so much from the sideline. You need somebody on the pitch. And I think Bruno does so much on the pitch. Thanks for all you do, United Stand, and you help me with my mental health. Love you all. And you, Goldie, buying you a pint when you come to South Africa, says Joshua. I can't wait to come to South Africa. The fan base we've got over there is absolutely great. Not just for the United, but for the United Stand. The support we get globally is amazing. But so many people from South Africa. Big shout out to them. And I'm not singling out people from South Africa over anywhere else in the world, but I've said it before. We went on tour in the South Africa, I think in the early noughties, the United team. It's long overdue that we go back there and do a tour, because we've got a huge fan base there. And, it can't just be America and then Asia all the time. I think we do, as a club, need to start, visiting these other areas of the world where we've got huge fan bases, and also newer areas of the world as well. It would be a revenue hit, I think, since matchday sales would take a hit during renovation. It's partly why I'd prefer a new stadium, says SK. Well, look, it's interesting where the show has gone a little bit, but Jeffrey says the captaincy matters when the captain is actually good. That's when we see it. And look, whatever we do with the stadium, we've got to do something. Our studio looks out on Old Trafford, and to be honest with you, you look out there and you breathe it in and you go, I love this club. But you also look at it and go, God, we need to do something with it. You can't just leave the problem. The big problem with the Glazers is we wouldn't even be having this chat. We go back to whether Rooney said the Glazers have done a good job. I can give you a list as long as my arm about the bad jobs they've done, but let's just focus on one thing they've done bad, which is shocking, is they've never seen any renovation of Old Trafford in their whole 17 years here. I think the last time anything was done to Old Trafford was either 2005 or 2006. And they may have just started at the club then, the Glazers, but they didn't organise and build it. They've never paid for any infrastructure or building of Old Trafford in 17 years. Now, what should have happened is we should have had this all along. We should have been continually doing bits on Old Trafford. And then we wouldn't even be having this chat. It's the fact that they've let it decay. And it's symbolic of their whole time, really, in so many areas, whether it's debt, dividends, but we're talking about the stadium here. They've done nothing with it for 17 years, and now we're in a position where it's crumbling, and we can't even do little bits because we've missed 17 years. We've got to make a big decision. We've got to build a new stadium or rebuild the current one, and that is going to be impactful, because if we rebuild Old Trafford, which is what I want to see happening, how do you do that and play games? It'll be very, very difficult. Ten Hag's greatest accomplishment is to stop Bruno from laying on the pitch while the rest of the team plays with 10. To Temple City underground. And when he was a PLC in the late 90s, the club paid dividends every year but still rebuilt the stadium to an all-seater. The Glazers' biggest crime is the debt, says Glennie. I remember those days. I remember when Old Trafford was getting... I mean, look, after Hillsborough and the Taylor report, there was a lot of stadiums that had to become all-seaters and get rid of the standing section. And, you know, the early days of the if you go and watch Premiership years, the early days of the Premier League, I mean, I remember Arsenal behind one of the goals. They had that mural, didn't they? Pictures. It was like a picture of fans. There were so many grounds like that in the first early years of the Premier League that were just being built, and, you know, they'd still play there. But Old Trafford really did get renovated in the 90s. It really did, and into the early noughties. It was really impressive what we did. Old Trafford, the most concentrated period of me going to watch United was certainly in the early noughties. And when you went there, then you go in and look, every time I go to Old Trafford, and I'm sure everyone's like this, you walk up the steps, you take it in, and you just take a deep breath. It doesn't matter if you're going every week or 3 times a week or once a year. You just take it in. But back then, you'd take it in and go, we've got one of the best stadiums in Europe. We don't now. We've got one of the most historic stadiums in Europe. It's a bit like Goodison Park. It's got an atmosphere, and I love it. But it's fallen behind because of the Glazers. Alan Kenny says 2004 last time work was done. It's an amazing ground, Old Trafford, and if you're a United fan and you've never been, if they knock it down, you need to get there before they do. If we're moving away, you need to get there before we do. And I think there'll be massive protests if they do that, and I would agree with that. But you've got to get yourself there before they do anything to it, because the way I always feel about Old Trafford is, because I remember being a kid getting home from school, and my granddad would have the old Busby Babes VHS on, or the Story of Man United VHS on, and they'd cut to interviews and clips from the early 60s or the late 50s, and you'd see Old Trafford, and they're outside it, and you can see it now. It still looks very similar. It's just been slightly modernised. It's so historical, that ground. Many of us just do not want that to be knocked down for a new stadium. We just don't want it. Hi Mark, do you think if United win the Europa League trophy, would it be like when United won the Cup Winners' Cup, Sir Alex Ferguson's first trophy, says Rory. I just think, we've sort of come full circle, Rory. Thank you very much for your generous super chat, by the way. I think we've come full circle in a way, because we started off talking about the Newcastle game, and I can't overstate how important it is we win on Sunday. The Carabao Cup, I'll be honest, arrogantly, under Sir Alex, the Carabao Cup, I remember us winning it one year, and it was our only trophy. Someone in the chat will tell me, maybe it was 2005. We won the Carabao Cup, and I was pissed off. And I think a lot of people in the fan base were pissed off. It was like, that's not a good season. Winning the Carabao Cup is not a good season. It was like, it was that arrogance we had then. It was like, nah, piss off. That's embarrassing. But, now it's absolutely not embarrassing because of where we've been. And I think you're right. That Cup Winners' Cup, it was a massive win, that, against Barcelona. And it was the catalyst to go on and be successful. Because winning breeds... And actually, to be in the Cup Winners' Cup, we had to win the FA Cup in 90. So winning a trophy can be the catalyst to success. These teams... So, look, Casemiro's won with Real Madrid, Varane's won with Real Madrid, Martinez has won the World Cup with Argentina, but winning with Manchester United, with your teammates, is, that's what we need to do. Mike says, no room for sentiment. Bruno is a beast, plus should be captain. New stadia could be built on site right next door with no impact on attendance or revenue. It'd be very interesting, Mike. I've had no conversation with anybody about what United are going to do with the stadium. I think it's a really interesting conversation. I think if you are absolutely a business person, then you 100% would say, we build a new stadium and we move. It'll be cheaper and it'll be quicker. But this is not what we are doing. This is not what we're dealing with. So we'll have to wait and see. I don't know whether fans will be consulted on that. But yeah, I think that it'll be very interesting to see what happens. I've really enjoyed the show tonight, everybody. I love the Friday night show, and I hope you do as well. I will be back in the morning with you as well on the 10 o'clock show, and then Sunday, Carabao Cup. I've noticed most clubs are taking all domestic cups more seriously since the days of Sir Alex. Look at the finals last year. Pep Guardiola used to love winning the Carabao Cup. Look at the finals last year. Both of them, Chelsea against Liverpool. These cups are taken seriously now. I'm not embarrassed about being in the Carabao Cup final. We need a trophy, and this resets it. I can't wait, and I'm excited. I think we're the favourites, and I think we'll win. Thanks everyone for watching tonight. Please smash a like on the video. Don't forget, I don't want people to be disappointed. I'll keep shouting this out. We've sold Dublin out, but we've got the Manchester show on the Thursday night of the international break in March. Ben Foster's going to be on the show with me, so that'll be a very different show. Every show we do is going to be different. Even the 2 shows in Dublin, they will be different shows. You could come to each one, and you'd have a different experience. But Manchester, we've still got some tickets for. That's going to be with Ben Foster. And then London, we've still got tickets for as well. Be fantastic to see you. Can't wait to meet people and have a drink and get pictures and stuff like that and talk football. Links in the video description, and it's in the live chat. Get your tickets now. We will be looking to do more of these in different places as well. But yeah, I can't wait for it. It's going to be great. And as I said, they're going to be very interactive shows and something a bit different but very familiar. And it'd be great to, you know, how great will it be to be in the audience with loads of other United Stand community? Because it's not just about the show I'm going to do. It's about the community that you're part of. I think it's going to be a great atmosphere. Get your tickets and I'll speak to you later. Thanks very much. And I'll speak to you in a bit.